Mindfulness is simply being aware. That's what mindfulness. Mindfulness is being aware of the present moment without judgment and without reaction. And so this is a core quality, a core feature of any effective, good, and helpful therapist, is that we are aware. And the whole kind of point of what we're studying here is to deepen levels of awareness, right? They talk about how as you go through your clinical training, your clinical development, the way you view the world, it changes, it shifts really substantially. We talked earlier in the class about splitting, this events where we want to see things as either good or bad. There are either good people in the world or there are bad people in this world, right? This very kind of black and white category. What that does is it helps you to navigate the world a little bit more easily, in a sense that it makes it a lot less complicated. But it brings a lot more difficulty in navigating the world because of black and white, good or bad categories. These aren't actually sufficient to enable us to meaningfully step into the ambiguities and the confusions and the difficulties of life. And as a therapist, if you're looking at people as either good or bad, if you're looking at everything that someone does as either good or bad, that's not going to help you to actually step into their subjective experience. It's a very objective perspective of evaluating and judging, but it doesn't actually help us to step into somebody's unique internal experience. And this is one of the core features of therapy, that we are trying to empower individuals to become more acquainted with their own interior experience, with their own stories. Because when we understand our own story, we understand the idiosyncrasies that are occurring. When we develop a sense of compassion for ourselves, we aren't so afraid to see the beam in our own eye, because we don't have to morally judge ourselves in this punitive way and punish ourselves endlessly. We can just see, oh yes, I have this huge beam in my eye. How understandable, considering I'm a human, and I'm finite, and I'm limited, and I was just thrown into this existence as a child of other limited, finite beings. We don't have to punish ourselves endlessly as bad people because of our failings. We can just rather observe them, and when we can observe them with compassion, that's actually when we begin to change. Carl Rogers says something along the lines of, the paradox of change is that it cannot happen until I accept myself completely as I am right now. And so mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, is the practice of, in a set of time, 10 minutes or so, we're sitting down and simply trying to cultivate an awareness that's just observing. We're not judging as good or bad. We're not saying I'm good or bad as a meditator, or I'm good at this, or I'm bad at this, or my discomfort in my lower back is bad and I need to escape it, or I need to try harder. Someone earlier in the class, in one of their presentations, talked about, in their philosophy class, somebody saying that we are human beings and not human doings. And especially in the West, we are obsessed with doing. We go. More growth, more health, more wellness, and these things are good. But if we can't step out of that and simply sit and be, then we're never able to be ourselves. We're never able to be in relationship. We aren't doing in relationship, we are being in relationship. And so mindfulness is the practice of cultivating that sense of being. There's a saying that I heard the other day that I just loved, and it really struck me. The saying is that growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of cancer. And I think that's a lot of times the growth mindset that we have, especially in the health and wellness field, right? There can kind of be this toxic growth mentality, especially in the kind of motivational kind of coaching attitude of you just got to want it more, you just got to push through more, you just got to try harder, you just got to figure it out more. But there's no end to it, because there's always going to be more to do, and there's never going to be an end to the to-do list. So there's a certain sense in which we need to be able to just sit and be with ourselves. That's the very spirit and the attitude that we are trying to cultivate with our clients. To be able to say, hey, we can just sit here and be with the anxiety. We can sit here and be with the sadness. oftentimes our own and the stories of many of our clients have been characterized by running away from the fear, running away from the sadness, because if they were to feel sadness in their childhood, it would create a threat to the attachment ties to their caregivers, because oftentimes our caregivers don't know how to be with sadness. Our caregivers don't know how to be with anxiety. They might say things like, oh, just get over it, or just push through it, or it's not a big deal, right? Or they're starving people on some other side of the continent, right? So you should be grateful for what you have. You shouldn't listen to what your body's saying that you're full. You should eat because there's someone somewhere else that's hungry. And it's like, well, how does that make sense, right? And so mindfulness is the practice whereby we sit and we just observe what comes up. And so in the beginning of the mindfulness practices, what we'll do today is focused attention. So we take our attention, we focus it on one object of attention, right? We will focus on the body, we'll focus a little bit on the breath, we'll focus on sounds. And this helps us to kind of do a little bit of doing, right? Paying attention to the breath gives us a little bit of something to do. That's kind of like a baby step. But then gradually, as you practice mindfulness more often and more often, you shift from a focused attention, say of the breath, with non-judgment and non-reaction, to what's called open monitoring. And this is a mindfulness that we're simply just sitting and being present to whatever comes up. One of the misconceptions is that mindfulness is about stopping thought, but it's not. It's impossible to stop thoughts. It's pretty impossible to control thoughts. What we're doing is we're changing our relationship to thoughts. So if during this practice thoughts come up of, oh, am I doing this right? Or, oh, this is boring. Or, oh, what was that noise? Or, oh, what do I have to do later? Or what are all the things that I have to do? Am I doing this right? We can blend with those thoughts, which is normally what we do. And we kind of take them at face value. I heard shortly ago, and I love this, all thoughts beg to be believed. But in mindfulness, rather than kind of automatically stepping into that thought and either pushing it away in resistance or grabbing onto it with craving and desire, we're simply stepping back, and just like a cloud goes by in the sky, we're saying, oh, that's just a thought. The thought comes up. This is boring. Oh, there's a thought that this is boring. And then I just simply come back to the object of focus. So I will guide you all through this. We'll do it for about 10 minutes. And there really is no goal, but if there was a goal, the goal here is simply to become aware, to allow whatever shows up to show up, and to do this with a non-judgmental, non-reactive attitude. Yes, John.
What was that quote you said of how we first have to recognize ourselves and think before we change?
It's a quote by Carl Rogers, and it's something along the lines of, the paradox is that I cannot change unless I accept myself completely as I currently am. Something along that. But if you look it up, I bet you could find it as well. So, any other questions before we get started? The attitude that I want to invite you all to here today as we're doing this is simply curiosity and openness. I'm going to welcome you guys to close your eyes as we're doing it. At a point, I'll welcome you all to close your eyes. You don't have to do that if you don't want. If that would feel remarkably uncomfortable. But I really would encourage you guys to kind of lean in and give it a try. So if there's no questions before we get started, I almost made a sign of the cross. But let's begin. So we can begin just looking forward, not looking at anything in particular, but just noticing all the colors in front of you. And we'll begin just with a few breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Again, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And on this next breath in, as you breathe out, you can just gently close your eyes. We're just taking a few moments here to settle into now. We are practicing here in the next few moments, being here and being now. And so you can allow your breath to just return back to normal. Noticing that you're breathing all on your own. You can control your breath, but here we're just going to let the breath operate on its own, rising and falling. And you can notice on the out breath that each time you breathe out, your body just softens slightly. Your muscles just subtly let go of the slightest tension each breath out. The out breath is the body's natural way of letting go. And you can bring the attention now to the way your body's sitting. You've been sitting for a while now, probably about a half hour. But now you can really begin to notice what it actually feels like to be seated. There's no need to change how you feel, but just notice if you feel comfortable in your seat or uncomfortable. Notice your feet, whether they're planted on the ground or crossed. Notice whether your feet feel tense or relaxed. Notice your bottom and your back resting on the chair. And notice all the different sensations of contact. At first, it might seem flat. But notice where you feel the most pressure underneath you and kind of zoom in gently there. And notice that rather than one static sensation, there's many different micro movements. From one moment to the next, there's a shifting of sensations. Notice the feeling of gravity. That gravity is actually pulling you down, holding you in your seat. We're simply observing and becoming very curious about our experience. Notice your hands, arms, maybe they're in your lap or on the desk. Just notice all the sensation that's present in your hands. Allowing your body to be exactly as it is. Allowing yourself to enjoy the support that gravity, your seat, your body is giving you. Noticing in your body, in a more global, general sense, any feelings of tightness or tension, perhaps any tension or heaviness in your belly or in your chest, maybe in your shoulders or your neck or your back. There's no need to change or to try to relax. We're just observing without judging it, without trying to change it. Now allow the body to be a little bit more in the background. And notice all the different things that you can hear. There are no right things or wrong things to hear here. Notice how many different layers of sound there are. Whether it's the humming of the air conditioner, maybe the sound of someone coughing or sniffling, the creaking of the building. Notice that my voice too is one of these sounds. See if you can notice the farthest sound away from you. Noticing the closest sound to you. Maybe it's even a sound inside your ear. There's no need to think about these sounds or figure them out. We're listening in the same way that we taste food, or just experiencing it as it is, savoring it. And notice how sounds just emerge spontaneously all on their own. There's really nothing we can do to stop a sound. Notice how these sounds spontaneously emerge. You hear them, and then all on their own they drift away. Notice how this sound comes out of nowhere and automatically, just as easily, passes away. What happens to the sound after you've heard it? Just allowing yourself to be here with the sounds. And again, if you get caught up in thought, wondering, are you doing this right? Or is this boring or too abstract? Just notice that as a thought. That's all it is. It's a thought. And just like sounds, thoughts emerge out of nowhere. And if we allow them, by being non-judgmental and just observing, they also will pass, just like the sounds. And shifting the attention again, allowing these sounds to be a little bit more in the background. Bring your attention to your breath. There's no need to change the breath in any way. Just notice the breath exactly how it is. The attitude that we want to adopt here is an attitude of curiosity and wonder, like you're breathing for the very first time. You've never breathed before, and only now you're coming to encounter this miraculous experience of the breath, which sustains our life. Something that we take for granted, something so simple that happens all on its own. You can notice the breath in the belly, or notice your breath at the tip of your nose or the tip of your mouth, perhaps in your throat. Bring the attention to the tip of your nose or the tip of your mouth, where the breath is entering and leaving the body. And notice the change in temperature between the in-breath and the out-breath. The subtle coolness as we inhale. The subtle warmth as the breath leaves the body. And then notice the breath in the belly. The rising and the falling. Notice where in your body you feel the breath most intensely, most clearly. And just like a feather, rest your attention there. Following the sensation of the breath as it rises, reaches fullness, and then lets go. And if your mind wanders off into thought, that's perfectly okay. We kind of want to treat our mind here like a puppy that's just wandered off, and gently we want to pick it up without judgment, without scolding, and just bring it back to the breath. Rising and falling. And then for a few moments here, allow your mind to be completely free. Allow your mind to do whatever it wants to do. There's no need to control or to focus it on attention. Just give your mind the space to not have any agenda, to not have to do anything at all, to be however it would like. Just noticing what's here now when there's no problem to solve. Just observing what emerges when there's no thing you have to do. That's it. And then gently noticing the breath again. Gently noticing the body again, the feeling of weight, the feeling of tension, pressure, contact, the feeling of gravity. Noticing the sounds as well. And in your own time, as you're ready, just allowing your eyes to open. Just noticing how you feel. For any of us who might have fallen asleep, we can wake up here as well. It's quite a common experience when we meditate. One of the most common, I think, when we sit down to do nothing. We can realize how tired we are, how exhausted we are, and it can be pretty easy to drift off into sleep. One of the things that we develop in meditation is a wisdom about effort. That if we try too hard, we curl up like a balled fist and just bring tension. If we don't try hard enough, we fall asleep. Yeah, I'm just curious about your experiences here in doing this exercise.